They're small, rare, and easy to miss. If you blinked, you missed it. But lately I counted 3.5 protests in Russia. Bashkortostan and Altai are pushing back at local politicians and their local municipal reforms. Dagestan is very angry over power outages, and St. Petersburg wants mobile internet back. It pushes against internet blockings. These aren't crowds yet, they're sparks. First signals on the radar. Stay with me, I'll show you why these tiny flashes signal a bigger shift. And remember, it all starts with the first step. Howdy, everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. As usual, you will not find any propaganda, BS, or lies here. Instead, you will find plenty of truth, common sense, and logic. And some emotions, because I'm a human being after all. Now, how do you notice that house is on fire? Let's say you stand in front of a house. How do you notice it's on fire? The chances are small smoke, tiny smoke. It starts coming out, smoking out. First smoke, it's so tiny, you most likely don't even notice it. You don't see it, but you start smelling it. But once smoke can be smelled, can be felt, you know there is a problem. You know that there is something inside the house that is causing tiny little fire, creating smoke, and there's a possibility to develop into a raging fire that would consume entire house. Now, we start smelling the smoke. Very little, tiny little bit, but enough to smell it. Nevertheless, it's smoke. Now, let me start this message with a personal story. I've told it in one of our live streams, in one of the messages, but I want to repeat it because this personal story goes very well with what I'm trying to tell you today. Now, I nearly fell a victim of protesting about 10 years ago. I was offered a job to lead a manufacturing plant, not a big one, manufacturing plant nevertheless, with around 100 employees or so. To take that job was a mistake because the plant was in a state of bankruptcy. When I stepped into the plant, all I saw was desertion. This people deserted, everything deserted. The place was empty. Now, the place was supposed to be working, but it was empty. Only 2 people were at the site. Actually, one was accountant and another one was a sales manager. Not 100, just 2 employees. As it turned out, there hadn't been any orders in months and the bank account was at 0. As I was at the site, I was walking around, I saw workers gathering. First a few men and women, and then about 20-25 showed up. And I met them, I was smiling at them, but they were angry. And I soon realized they wanted to beat me up. Yes, they were after me. I was shocked. Turned out the plant had owed them pay for previous 2 years. It was crazy. It was the first time I saw anything like that. The shareholders of the plant who invited me and made me an offer to lead that plant had run the plant to the ground, literally. So I explained to workers that I was fresh off the boat, so to speak, and I promised them to look into the situation and to see what I could do. They didn't beat me up, but they were very close to it, actually. Now, I left the plant, and I soon found out that the workers organized and wanted to stage a public protest. They filed a permission to the local administration, to the local government. They went according to the law, and they filed paperwork with the police. They also invited a TV channel to televise that protest. And as soon as the news got out that there was TV program involved, whole hell broke loose. At the very same moment, I started getting telephone calls from everyone, from the police, from the local police, from the federal police in Rostov, from the revenue service. By the way, that was happening in Rostov province. It was far away from the capital, Rostov, the plant itself, not too far from the border of Ukraine. But our main office was in Rostov, so I got calls from the revenue service. We owed them a lot of money, by the way. From the politicians, the local ones on the ground near the plant, and from Rostov politicians, the capital politicians, and from the governor himself. There were more organizations calling me. It's just I don't remember them all. I remember the big ones too. That's it. So I realized that something big was happening, and I certainly had not been prepared to that. The police started threatening me. They said that if protest takes place and it gets televised, they're going to arrest me. I didn't understand. I asked them, on what charges? They said, well, you'd better show up at our office and we'll talk. And I did, and we talked. So they threatened me again, and it was an informal meeting, by the way. They did not press charges or anything. So they threatened me. I said, look, there's nothing that I've done. So then they immediately changed their tactics, and they started giving me carrots, so to speak. They started making me promises that if I take care of the problem with protesting those workers, then they would make sure that our debt to the government, to the tax revenue service, would disappear. How can you do that? An officer told me, we can do that. I promise you, it's going to disappear. Well, I asked him how I was supposed to take care of the protest. He told me, promise anything, these people. I said, that'd be lying. He goes, I don't care. Just tell them anything so they don't get out on the street at that time. There is no television involved. Just take care of it. So anyway, the revenue service people, they used the same tactics of sticks and carrots. First, they threatened me. They said, your dad is so big and you as director are now responsible. And I was like literally 2 or 3 days at the job. And then I said, well, do your worst. And and then they started telling me how they can work with me about not paying the income tax. There was also like a big amount of money owed. Then there were politicians calling, and boy, they didn't offer any carrots. They just threatened and threatened and threatened all kinds of politicians, local deputies. And then the culmination was that 2 calls, actually. One from the head of local administration, like local parliament, and the second call was from the office of the governor, and they were tough. So basically what I did, I got the shareholders who were responsible for that mess involved, and they took care of the situation. The protest did happen, but they showed up and they promised an arm and a leg. You know, they promised to establish a roadmap to pay off all the debts. So the meeting turned out to be not so angry, it turned out to be more of a positive. And of course, the local politicians jumped in and started saying how they did a great job mediating that problem and all of that. So now, I was not bothered any longer. Well, I didn't last at that job for a long time. I quit after a very short period. But I learned something from that experience. I realized that in Russian state, and that was about 10 years ago, the biggest sin was protesting. It wasn't owing money to the state and not paying. It wasn't stealing. It wasn't committing the crime. It wasn't lying to people. It was protesting. The sin of protesting applied to both protesters and those who caused the protests. Why? Because protesting is instability. It shows that Putin's system he's built, the vertical of power, has flaws big enough for people to be so unhappy at something that they can take it to the streets to protest. Putin has been selling his system of governance of Russia, basically a authoritarian system called the vertical of power, as stability and good life to Russian people. He's always scared people with the 90s. And those were some turbulent times, turbulent years. Very few in Russia understand that hardship of the 90s was inevitable and normal. How do you transform society from communism to capitalism? From communism to freedom? One system breaks, another one you start building, and obviously in that transformation period can be shorter, can be longer, but you just can't switch one system to another. You have to rebuild, and it takes time. And of course, there'd be those who would face hardship, who would have their lives broken, would have their lives changed, of course. For Russia, it took 10 years, which I think is very good, very short, and it was very painful for many. And I remember my parents, it was financially very painful for my dad, who couldn't work at his dream job. He couldn't work at train engines, and Putin has massively exploited that issue by substituting the concepts. The message was, you lived in the 90s, through the 90s, and you remember how bad it was because of instability of every kind. Political instability. Look how many political parties there were. Financial instability. Look, there weren't any opportunities, and so forth. And I, Putin, give you stability. But my stability comes at price. The price is your freedom, or part of your freedom. Hey, but stability is much bigger purpose than it's much bigger cause than your freedom. And that was the deal. And many Russians have taken it. And the hardship of the 90s was not due to the instability. The instability was rather the sign of the very fast changes happening in Russia. The instability was not the cause, it was the effect. So Putin sold the idea of stability to people for 25 years. It has been the main concept of Russian state, stability. Russians, we give you stability. And protesting shows that there's something wrong with the system. Shows that despite people giving up their freedoms, despite people changing their lives, allowing government to do so much, despite all of that, there is instability. Because protesting is far from stability. Protesting is unhappiness. Protesting is people want something different. How can you want different from stability? What do you want? You know what? That's the discrepancy. Anyway, when I was giving an interview in early August, just 8 weeks ago. I was asked, one of the channels was interviewing me. I was asked if I saw any signs of protests. And that question actually made me smile because I hadn't seen or heard of protests of any kind in over a year. The last protest that I heard was in late 2023. The mothers and the wives of those mobilized men who were mobilized in 2022, 1 year prior, they were trying to organize and they were protesting. They actually took it out on the streets, and their cause was this: our husbands are at the war, at the special military operation for 12 months without any vacationing, like off time, without any communication with us. We want them back. Enough. Okay? And the protests were crushed. They were dealt with. Putin knows one way, two ways of dealing with protests. First, he buys those who organize protests. And second, if they don't sell out, he crushes them, arrests them, eliminates them. So the protests were quieted, silenced. Nothing I've heard from those women. I know that a lot of mothers and wives were bought. They were given lots of money, big compensations. And two leaders were labeled as foreign agents, and most likely they have left Russia. I haven't heard anything else from them ever since. So now when this guy is asking me, have you heard of any protests? No, not in early August. But you know what? Here comes September, and all of a sudden, I see signs of protests, and my jaw drops. Wow. Moreover, there have been 4 protests recently, 3.5. Now, I want to tell you about these protests. And they're not huge, they're not massive, but they are protests. Read my lips, please. They are protests. They're people standing up and saying, hey, you know what? Something going on that we don't like. The first protest was in Altai Republic, one of Russia's provinces in the east of Russia. What happened there was the largest demonstration in roughly 20 years for that area, for that province. Over the past 2 months, the steps over the Supreme Court in the town of Gorno-Altaysk have become the place where people quietly lined up to say, we want to be heard. People came in national dresses because Altai is home of indigenous people, the Altai people, carrying the republic's flags for the first time in living memory there. It had not happened before. Some traveled hundreds of kilometers from distant, isolated mountain districts. Altai is a large province, huge actually, lots of mountains, lots of taiga. One former Kurultai, that's how Altai local parliament is called, Kurultai, senator put it, small streams from remote areas flowed into one larger stream in Gorno-Altaysk. Now, what were people of Altai protesting? Number 1, identity and respect. Vladimir Putin has a very good friend. His last name is Turchak. His son, Putin's friend's son, is a politician, a very heavyweight politician. Recently, Putin sent Andrei Turchak as the governor to Altai. He appointed Turchak the governor. So at his inauguration, the new governor, Andrei Turchak, a political heavyweight that came from St. Petersburg initially, and former Putin's political party United Russia General Council secretary, very politically heavyweight guy, took the gubernatorial oath only in Russian. not in Altai language. Now, it was the first time. Every governor before him took oath in two languages. For many indigenous residents, who make up more than a third of the population, that felt like a slap in the face. In the region where identity, language, and land are tied together, symbolism matters. So, number 2, constitutional amendments. In April 2025, Turchak moved constitutional changes. In the local set of a code of laws, in the local constitution, there was one line about the integrity and indivisibility of the republic was slated for removal. So basically, they wanted to remove this idea that Altai is integral and indivisible Republic of Russia. So officials insisted it was just a legal formality, that protections of indivisibility of this region of Russia, of the province, remain elsewhere in Russian constitution. But for the residents who already fought off this proposed change back in 2006, almost 20 years ago, the signal felt dangerous. Protests, pickets, and appeals followed. Turchak labeled opponents, those regular folks who came to say their opinions, provocateurs. And he used a very pointed phrase about how such people were treated in wartime conditions. You can imagine how well that landed with the locals. And number 3, they protested for power, architecture, and appointments. Another charge came from the state. Another change created a prime minister role and shifted it from the cabinet. It related to the head of the republic. Okay. Quickly after, the government was dissolved, and one of the fellows, his last name is Alexander Prokopiev, linked to the Avalar business family and a former minister of economic development, was appointed the prime minister. So basically, they pulled this dirty political personality change. They removed the prime minister and installed their own one. For many locals, that looked like the door opening to the big capital coming from Moscow. And with it, big risks of land grabs and environmental pressure. And you know what? They're absolutely right. That's what would happen. Turchak, a politician from Moscow, from the federal level, came, and he started changing rules, changing those people who were voted by the people of Altai and placing his own people. The next step is, different resources are grabbed by large corporations that come from Moscow. Now, why this is so sensitive to Gorny Altai? Because 70% of people live in rural areas. Land is not an abstraction there, it's livelihood and heritage. Since 2022, locals say that they've seen a surge in outside money buying land, and the companies and individuals who buy land in Altai push them out of their habitat. At the village level, even deputies from the ruling party sometimes shielded residents going against their party, which is unheard of, Putin's party, United Russia. One 2024 case in Sugash, that's one of the small towns, big villages there, saw pushback against gold mining project, and it succeeded. So this company was not allowed to come in, and then I guess Turchak was following it up by changing the legislation. So communities have learned organizing can make a difference. Organized local voices can matter and can be heard. Now, the most important cause of protests, that kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, came from the municipal reform. And this is what it always comes down to: how people govern their lives. Do they self govern, or someone from Moscow tells them what to do, tells them that in Moscow they know better? And this is exactly what caused protests, the last straw that broke Altai's people's backs. In June 2025, federal law gave Russian provinces the option to reorganize local self government. Altai moved early and hard. The message from governor's team was, it's not a right, but an obligation. In practice, that can eliminate many rural administrations. Officials framed it as efficiency. It would save up, this measure would save up to 15 million rubles on elections, which is $200,000. Simply, how to say that? The local residents, the Altai people, they didn't take it lightly, okay? Imagine $200,000 for the entire province. That's not worth the change. Locals heard something else from that message. Less voice where it matters most: land, roads, grazing, tourism permits. And this is what have followed. I want to show you the picture from Altai. Governor Turchak called these people the provocateurs. He said that in wartime, the harsh measures applied to them. I think you know what I mean. I personally don't see any provocateurs. I see the local folks. I see lots of elderly. I see people protesting peacefully in a very civil manner. I don't see any provocateurs. I don't see any crimes committed. Well, that was protest number one. Again, not big in numbers, but very significant because it was heard throughout the entire province of Altai. Not too many people live there. Size-wise, it's huge. Then came the protest in Bashkortostan. That protest was even smaller than Altai. It was not as organized. It was, at the core, it had 6 people. Now, recently in Bashkortostan, security forces conducted searches and detentions in Ufa. The federal police conducted the searches at homes of 5 local activists: a journalist, Natalia Lazaricheva, an attorney, Gulnara Husnayarova, and the 3 activists, Guzel Reiter, Elvira Sagadeva, and Tamara Ahmedzadova. So 5 of them. This is what happened. This is a recording of one of the family members during one of the detentions. You see that detention came, like an elderly person was detained. It came at a very regular apartment. Nothing fancy. That's where all the Russians, in most of Russians, live in conditions like that. Okay. Some activists were taken to the investigative committee office, while Reiter and Lazaricheva were taken to the secret police KGB office. The reason for the searches and detentions were officially unknown still, but only officially. The real reason is that Guzel Reiter is known for protests against gold miners gold miners again, large corporations who come to not just Altai, to Bashkortostan, which is not too far, still in the east of Russia, the province with vast resources, with riches. So the locals don't want large Moscow gold companies, gold miners, come and take their land. So they protest. Gulnara Husniyarova previously defended Aruna Ama in court, another activist. Natalia Lazaricheva calls herself an independent journalist and runs a YouTube channel, Telegram channel. The local authorities are so afraid of these 5 women, 5 activists, 5 good human beings, that they have decided to silence them. Now, will they be able to? We don't know. But the arrests and information about this ordeal has made splashes in Bashkortostan, and people throughout Russia also have learned about that. Now, the next protest came... You're not going to believe it. It happened in the middle of St. Petersburg, Russia's second largest city. Now, the protest was very small one. It was non-political. It was against blocking internet by the mobile operators. Half a dozen, perhaps a dozen people or so. What was interesting, that protest was approved by the local authorities. Now, in Russia, you still can protest courtesy of the government. If the government approves, you have to submit paperwork, describe your purpose, write who you are, bring your documents, your passport copy, and so forth. And if the government decides, okay, protest can be staged, it allows you. Then you have to get approval from the local police, because they would be supervising protest. So this protest was not spontaneous. It was planned and done with the approval of the authorities. But it was a protest nevertheless. People saw it in the middle of St. Petersburg. And then came 4th protest, the massive one in Dagestan. Now, check this out. Power outages. People in Dagestan are so fed up with electricity blackouts that they have taken it to the streets. Wait until they have gas shortages in Dagestan. I think we're gonna see lots of interesting things coming out of Dagestan. So anyway, what do these protests show us? People are so fed up that they take it onto the streets, despite of high risk of getting arrested and punished. And in Russia, punishment is very harsh these days. The government doesn't want you to protest. It doesn't want anyone to even think of protesting. Moreover, it uses propaganda's might to plant this idea in the heads of Russian people that protesters are traitors. Protesters are against Russian values, Russian traditional values, against well-being of people. They want to destabilize Russia. They are acting on behalf of foreign countries who don't wish well for Russia, who want to take its sovereignty. They are brainwashing people into believing that. Despite all of that, we see that there are some people who are near this boiling point, who are so upset and angry that they stand up and take it to the street. Not too many, but there are some. Okay? And what do these protests show to Russian people? Because Russians are watching. They hear about the protests. Not too many. It's really hard to get the information. You have to dig it out, really. And that's what I've done. And even me, I couldn't find videos and pictures of that protest in St. Petersburg. It happened, I think, a couple weeks ago. And I didn't save. I remember in my memory I saw that. And it made the news, very small news in independent media that is located outside of Russia, the opposition media. Okay, they showed footage and pictures. I started searching yesterday. I searched today. I didn't find anything. They've erased everything from internet. So, despite it's difficult to get information, Russians still here. The splashes still go around. What does it tell to Russian people? I think the biggest threat to the government of protests is that Russians start asking questions. And it all starts with asking yourself questions. Very uncomfortable questions. How come that a governor sent from Moscow to Altai does not respect local traditions, local language? Who is he? Is he a governor of people of Altai? If he is, where is the respect to the people of Altai? What does he do so they stand up and take their anger to the streets, say no to him? Okay? Why the municipal reform, is taking place that people don't like? Because it's the municipal, the municipal laws and municipal system is to make lives of people better. Why they're taking away the right to self-govern people, to make decisions for villages? That's what it's all about, people self-governing. Why do they want to replace for the system where the Moscow or the federal government decides what's good or not good for people of just tiny villages? Okay, why Russians don't have access to mobile internet? Why do they feel so angry? So they take it to the streets of St. Petersburg. Why people in Makhachkala don't have electricity? Who is responsible for that? And then there will be further questions. You drive by, once you start yourself asking yourself question, the questions mount. You drive by and you see there's no gas in the gas station, or the gas costs an arm and a leg. What are you going to ask? Who is responsible? Why? You see this air raid alert. Why is that so? And questions mount. They add up. Okay, and that fake stability that Putin has sold to Russian people, that falls apart like a card house. That's why the protests are so darn dangerous to Putin and his friends. And we have seen the first ones. This is definitely something to notice. This is something definitely to monitor, and that I'm going to be doing that. This is definitely something to hope for. Thank you so very much. Don't sign off yet, because I'm turning the live stream chat on, and I am inviting everyone to join me there. Ask me questions. I'll try to answer. Now, I just turned the live stream chat on. My most favorite part of any live stream, because I actually like talking to you virtually, but talking through answering questions, through seeing your questions, through comments. Thank you. This community inside Russia is the best one on the entire internet because of the fantastic moderation team. Lorna, Mami K, Bob S, Harry Potter, and Amir Fazad, the best moderators you can find. Great people too, great friends. thank you for coming back. And thanks for helping me out again. Rules are very simple. Respect each other. No insulting. No provocative... provocative comments, I guess, okay. No U.S. politics whatsoever, because that's a rule. Treat others the way you like to be treated. And if you want to ask me a question, please put it in all caps and put Inside Russia after @ so I see it highlighted in a large orange box. Much easier for me to see. And if I missed your question or comment, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I just didn't see it. So keep on reposting your question. Sooner or later, I hit it. So mods, thank you again for coming. The usual suspects, you are absolutely great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lorna is here. Bob, as usual. Bob, you're so reliable, and thank you so much, friend. Thank you. Mammy is here. Welcome back. Fantastic to see you. And the usual suspects. Pinda the Peanut, Jones Rames, Koshkin Don, Leitmotiv, Stefan, Pamela J, AJ Ruffles, Angela Sparta, 300. Howdy. You know who? Tracy Stones, Andreas, Palvia Flex, Dale Musser, Alu, Printing Equals Freedom, PKMK. All right, let's get to the questions. Leitmotiv, hello from Bowie, Maryland. As usual, sending my love to Maryland. Thank you for coming. Guten Abend to my German friends here. So I'm getting to questions in caps, comments in caps, and those who are those that are highlighted in orange. What about the conference in Sochi? Not ready to discuss that yet. Coming up in the news update if I find it significant. Konstantin, howdy, howdy, says Sam the Legend K. Fantastic to see you, Sam. Roy from London, Andrew from South Africa, Tyler Douglas, hello. Diesel Tinus from the Netherlands, sending my love to the Netherlands. Sparta 300, do you feel there could be a civil war in Russia? Wrong question. Do I feel or do I foresee? Do I think there might be one? Do I feel? No. There are no signs. Do I see one might be happening? Oh, yes. And the thing is, I think with a civil war, you get to a point where you don't see anything. It's like small smoke. You don't even feel it, okay? There's like almost no smoke. And then it just breaks out and all hell breaks loose. But is this possible? That's what your question is. Yes, it is. Squiggy64 missed everything except the last 5 minutes. Spectator this time. Well, thanks for coming. From Czech Republic, Mr. Grozny. Thank you for coming. Sending my love to Czech Republic and Prague. My parents lived in Prague for 10 years. Place is very dear to me. Janice, Pinda the Peanut, Scott, Shiva from Belgium. Howdy. Sam the Legend K says, Konstantin, I provide you with my humor as none of us wants you to get too stressed again. Stress isn't good. I am with you, Sam. Stress is not good. I don't want to be stressed out. Unfortunately, how can I not be stressed in this? What's going on now? I don't know what to tell you, friend. It's very stressful. It's stressful to live in this world, for one. And then it's very stressful when you just learn you are followed by the KGB. Very stressful, you know. That's Jodes, I saw a video of that St. Petersburg protest. You're right. Now it's nowhere to be found. Jodes, I'm telling you, I know my Russian stuff. If it was there, I would have found it. It's not there. But I saw it. Palve Flex, not a question but a statement. It's going to be a very cold winter in Russia, with Ukraine now hitting power plants. Yes, power plant in Belgorod was hit. Power outage and heat outage. I guess, well, it's still not supplying heat. There's central heating. So all Russian apartments and houses rely on, not most of houses actually have independent heating, but most of Russians live in apartments, and those come with centralized heating. So yes, I agree. It's going to be very, very cold and long winter. Tom W, howdy. Jill, I assume that little help was given to the residents of Moscow during the recent hurricanes. No, no help. Would this have sparked concern, or the residents just used to the lack of aid? Of course. Well, Jill, I understand where you're coming from, but in Russia, we are not used. Well, we it's not even a question because we've never received any aid from the state for that. Hurricane is a force of nature. Wind comes and destroys your house. Well, you know what? That's the force of nature. What does the state have to do with it? State is not obliged to pay you anything. You know, state has a different purpose. State protects you from the enemies around you, around the country. State protects you from the Americans. State protects you from the Englishmen, the French. You know, they are the ones who are Satanists. They want to destroy Russian values. They want to take Russia down, take its sovereignty. And state takes your money. You pay the state, not the state pays you. That's how it works, okay? Your house, your problem. Before you were sure that Russians would not protest but suffer in silence, what has changed? Pinda, you're right. I've said quite a few times, I don't believe in Russians. Well, I have seen protests. They've proven me, wait, if it becomes like a wildfire throughout Russia, you know, I'll say I was so wrong. But I'm very glad to see that. I'm very glad that some Russians who are fearless, who like to stand up, they're most likely going to be those who are not in the central Russia, not Russians, but the Tatars, the Bashkirs, the Altai, the indigenous people. Okay, the Russians, I still believe there will be very few protests in the. Now, divide Russia into two parts, the Western Russia, the Eastern Russia. So I don't think there will be many protests to the west of Russia, but the east, it's actually possible. Okay, now I see it's possible. What has changed? I don't know, people just started being heard. That's what changed. At least very few of them. But it's a sign. It's a sign that I'm watching. Friends, how do you see Russia in 1-2 years? Well, Russian economy is going to be in shambles in 1 year. I'm absolutely sure of that. The signs are now already that things are terrible. Not the signs, but the facts. It's going to get much, much worse. And that is going to bring a great instability to Russian state, because instability will be coming from the economy. The economy is the foundation of everything, and the economy is going to be causing lots of problems, not just with food, but with, you know, generally Russians will be living much, much lower. And I know that Russians are professional sufferers. And do you see what sparked protests in Altai? It's not because people started living worse. It's not because prices have gone up. And trust me, they have gone up in Altai as everywhere else. That did not cost them. Insult to their culture, insult to their land. That's what caused protests. That's a very interesting concept. I don't believe that the economy will be causing protests. I mean, not the economy, food, living standard. But I believe that failing economy will be producing black swan events. And those events actually can make fundamental changes in Russian political systems. But 2 years, I don't know. 1 year, we will definitely see sinking economy like probably you haven't seen anything before in your life. Curious Sand, how dependent are rural Russians on fuel supply? Incredibly dependent. Could it cause riots? Probably not. No. Russians are professional sufferers like that, take their fuel, they'll complain in the kitchens, but protesting, I don't think so. Well, I could be wrong, of course, we'll see, but I don't think so. They are very dependent on fuel supply. They need gas and diesel. How else do they grow things? How do they, grow grains, plants? How do they harvest? How do they take care of the animals? I don't really understand how you can do it. That's with horses. Well, I don't see that many farmers in Russia having horses. Albert Funk, is there any news on how Ekaterina Dontsova is doing? Yes, there are. I just saw she sent me a message, not me personally, but I subscribed to her Telegram channel. She sent me a message saying, she sent everyone a message saying things are all right. She's the foreign agent, by the way. They're put a leash on her by, labeling the foreign agent. There's not much she can do in terms of actions because she's a foreign agent, but she's still among people. She still is organizing her own party. She's still alive. She's still free. So that's already something in today's Russia. So she is alive and kicking. Sam the Legend K. Well, sorry to disappoint you, but it says right here, boss. So I'm wearing my regular short, only it's a different color. Kev Sullivan, hi Konstantin from Omaha, Nebraska. What effects will military veterans have on protests? Really hard to say, Kev. It's a very tough question. Now, military veterans are a big problem for Putin because they are people who now, for almost 4 years, live in trenches, at least those who are alive for 4 years. They shoot, they kill people. Their values have changed a lot. Most of them, all of them, have PTSD. And I think that they will have very little regards for the authorities when they come back, if they come back. So they could be the ones causing the protests or joining protests, or they could be the ones who the government will start paying a lot of money to crush the protests. Which way it'll go, I don't know, but we'll see. By the way, there's an interesting story with the veterans of Afghanistan and Russia. When they came back, they called themselves War Brotherhood, people who went through war. Okay, So they came back and they started getting together. They created an official organization, the public non-profit organization, the Veterans of Afghanistan, and they got preferences like tax breaks from the state. The USSR fell apart, and they started getting together in the groups organizing mafia organizations. So basically, what happened to them? Very few of them survived. Most of them were killed in the 90s by the state and by other mafia groups. And that's a sad story. I think that a similar story can happen to the veterans of Ukrainian war. Of course, not the veterans of Ukraine, but how do I call this? Ukrainian war doesn't sound too good. It sounds soft. The veterans of war crimes. How about that? Mr. Grozny, Konstantin, do you expect protests over gasoline shortages? I already answered that. They might add to protesting mood, the shortages. And again, it's going to vary from province to province. You see, Russia will not run out of gasoline completely. There will be some. And this is what they did in the USSR. When things were heating up, let's say with food, no food in some provinces, they would send an emergency supply. Same thing, different Russian regions would have different protest moods. And if in one of the provinces, one of the regions, or a few that would be things would be heating up, most likely the state would transport extra amount of gas to be distributed. And that's how they would take care of protests connected to gas shortages. Well, that's just, I hope that wow, what a great news. Konstantin from the son of Larry Barth. I would like to thank you all for prayers and kind words. Some signs of improved possible recovery. Colleen Barth, look, I am so happy. You just made my day. Larry Barth is missed. We pray for him. What a great guy. A pillar of inside Russia. In coma, but recovering now. Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll continue praying for him. James, may I suggest you get a cat? That would help with stress. James, not gonna work. Cat, it would put so much more stress on our lives. Every time we would leave, we would have to do something with the cat. We can't leave it with neighbors. We don't know anyone. Leave it where there are no hotels for pets. So we would be stuck here. I like cats. We have plenty of stray cats around our living on the street around our apartment block. Michael and Dasha, they sometimes go and buy some cat food and feed them. So I think we're okay with that. Samantha Vigor, Konstantin, will you ever return to Russia to live? Well, there was a good movie. It said, never say never again. I'm not saying never, because how do I know? But you know what? At this point, I do not plan of ever going back to Russia or living there. So thank you, but no thank you. I think Russian people, they chewed me up and spat me out. They're calling me traitor, many of them inside Russia. They can live whatever they want. They can have their own lives without me. Thank you. D, good to see you. Have you thought about the effects on Russian society and economy if many people can't get to work this winter? If fuel shortages continue? Why wouldn't they get to work? Russians rely on public transportation. If it stops running, and I think it will still be supplied with diesel fuel, the military and public transportation will be supplied with diesel fuel. Okay, they would stop selling it to people, but they would be still supplying buses. Even if they just run out of diesel and there will be no buses, Russians will be walking. I remember a few days was huge snowstorm in Rostov, and buses simply, like all cars, they stopped. There were like 5 or 6 feet of snow in just a course of 3 or 4 days, and you couldn't drive in those roads. There was only one tank from the Russian military who was, plowing through the streets of Rostov. And you know what? People walked. They walked. Rostov, you can walk like Rostov from one side of Rostov to another in 2 hours. So it's 2 hour walk one way. So I think people will just walk. It's happened before. Not for a very long time, but it happened. So they will continue working. And I mean it. When they will hit Moscow, St. Petersburg, by your opinion? Mr. Grozny, they have hit Moscow already. St. Petersburg, I don't know, but Moscow, some Lukoil gas stations, as of 4 days ago, didn't have gas. Not too many, but some. Moscow has officially the city with gasoline shortages. Well, I should say outages. They say 38% of refineries are out of commission. I made a live stream on Friday. Well, actually, it was Monday. Friday live stream. My son was sick, so I missed Saturday and Sunday. I did it on Monday. I did the review of the news from previous week, and there were quite a few hits on oil refineries. And the latest one, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, was Yaroslavl oil refinery. In my live stream yesterday, in the economic news update review, I said that it is a smaller refinery. I turned out to be wrong. It's in top 5 refineries in Russia. So what I'm trying to say is they keep on hitting refineries every single day. I don't think that 38% at this point, I think lower, but they might get there very, very fast. Could you please tell me the source where you learned about 38%? So thank you so much. ZX, have you heard of anything about all the trucks has stopped at the China-Russia border in both directions? No. Of course I have. It's big news, and it's actually serious for Russia. But it's not in China, it's in Kazakhstan. The trucks that are going from China through Kazakhstan into Russia, 1,000 kilometers or something like that, they use Kazakhstan as transit country. They all are stopped, and the Kazakhs are checking thoroughly for sanctioned goods and military goods. So basically, they're trying to cut the supply of military components to Russia. I will make this a news in Friday, this upcoming Friday news update. PKMK, what your opinion on Balkanization of Russia? If you mean Balkanization as splitting into smaller countries, I think it's coming. Swedish engineering. I just answered this question. I think that's what the previous commenter meant by asking me about Balkanization of Russia. So you're curious if Russia will fall apart into smaller regions when, like, Far East regions will break loose, Chechnya, etc. Now, there are 2 clearly different pathways for that. If Russia is on its own, then I foresee it's breaking into different states. But the thing is, China might come in and bail Russia. And I was thinking about that. It actually would be good for China because it would overtake Russia without any war. It would install own elites or buy existing elites. Putin definitely would have to go. They would place their own men, Russian, of course, from Russian political establishment, and they would be running Russia the way they want. They wouldn't need to annex Russian lands because Russia would be at their service at any time. And in this case, they would want to keep Russia in its current form. Leitmotif, what is your opinion on the tipping point for mass protests? I don't know. I have no answer for this question. You see, 8 weeks ago, there were no protests. Now there have been 4. So that's one of the areas that I'm not expert on. I'm trying to forecast a bit, and this is a shaky ground for me. I don't know. Dale might agree with you on that. Now, Kev, this is the second time someone asks me about this question. After all oil processing plants are gone, will the sugar beet processing plants be next? Why sugar beet? I think you left a comment. I don't understand. Why? Is sugar beet processing plants not that important? Why would Ukrainians target them? Just a random guy from Germany. Thank you so much. Interesting. It's partially owned by YouTube owners. The company is JD.com. It's trying to buy 25% plus 1 share of MVideo. I mentioned it in yesterday's live stream. Oh, I'm sorry. We went off time. Thank you so much, friends. Hey G, I don't understand the question. Bob, yes, we're wrapping up now. Rolf Steiner, China stopped buying all agricultural products from the USA. Well, obviously, it's not China stopped. The United States stopped selling them. The tariffs. You have tariffs, applied. That's brings full stop to selling anything to China. You've slapped tariffs on China. It becomes so much more expensive for the Chinese to buy your products, agricultural products. So therefore, Chinese don't buy them. They switch to somebody else. But anyway, thank you so very much. Let's finish this live stream with a prayer. Again, I'm so happy that Larry Barth is recovering. It's fantastic news. Made my day. Thank you, friends. Please pray with me. If you're religious, pray. If you're not religious, you can call it in any different way other than praying. Doesn't matter to me. Thank you. Thank you, dear Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for giving us this day, for placing food on our tables, for giving roofs over our heads. Thank you for the love you have allowed into our lives. Thank you for the loved ones. Please give us wisdom to keep the skies above our children's heads safe and peaceful. Give us wisdom to raise our children so when they grow up, they will never fight in any wars and just make this world a better, nicer place. For now, please keep our children safe and healthy. Dear Lord, I am asking for Ukraine, please help stop the bloodshed. The country and people of Ukraine need peace. Please provide by reaching out and touching the hearts and souls of those Russians who are responsible for the tragedy and for making the decision to stop the bloodshed. Fill their hearts with love. Remind them that they're still human beings. Wake them up from their lethargic sleep and touch them in a way so they make the decision to stop the bloodshed. And please help everyone in Ukraine who's been affected by this terrible tragedy. Answer their prayers and make their wishes come true. And please help my country, Russia. Assemble your strongest angels with sharpest swords. Have Saint Michael lead that heavenly army of yours down to this earth to get rid of the demons who we know by their faces and by their names who have hijacked Russia. Send those demons straight to hell. Please send your angels to help good Russian people run their country, help run their country so it becomes peaceful, loving, and respecting. Send safe travels to those who are traveling. Send help to those who are seeking for asylum of any kind, who are in danger. Provide safety. Please help those single mothers and fathers who are struggling, raising their children, trying to make ends meet. Help those who are helping Ukrainians and help those Ukrainians who are currently under Russian attacks. Send everyone safety, please. Dear Lord, I am asking you to help all those who are cold, hungry, sick, homeless, jobless, depressed, crying, going through divorces, unable to see their children as much as they want to, who are backstabbed, betrayed, whose hearts are bleeding, who are crying, who are losing their faith, who are feeling abandoned, who are losing their faith. Please help every single person in need. Thank you so much for allowing us to get together and pray. Thank you for this community. Thank you for the moderators. Thank you for regular viewers and everyone who gets to view my messages and prays with us. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the people who are praying right now and or for those who are simply watching us praying. So please help everyone answer their prayers and make their wishes come true. And dear Lord, I have a few people who I'd like to specifically pray for. They are Larry Barth. Thank you for making him feeling better. Please surround him with your love and send recovery to Larry and send strength to his children and his family. Please have Larry recover so he can go home and have wonderful Christmas with the family. Also, please help TMBC, Larry, Victor Garishan, Rod, Lee, and Brenda, Rafaela Fromm and her family, Rose Bronicky, Ron Bazoid, Teresa, Ann, Hannah, Jeffrey S., Katharina, Mark, Tom W., J.R. McKeem, Gaben with Gary, Lisa, Harry, Terry, John, Linda, Paul, Dennis, Jason, Susie, Tim, Dory, Rhonda, John, Taylor, Wayne, Darla, George, Pamela J, Meta, David Porter, everyone who is in Chernovtsi, Ukraine, Leif, Randolph, Grace, Dean Spooner, Yelena, Natasha, Michael, Jake, Oля, Dasha, Sky, Svetlana, Sergey, Liz, Ron, Liz, Koshkin Dom, Sandra, Mike and Mike, Petra, Joseph, Millie, Eileen, Jodes, Philip, Eric Martinez, Denise Abbott, Jeff Gibson, and Renate. Thank you so much, dear Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much for being with me in this message. Thank you for praying along with me, watching us pray. You're awesome and you rock. Please don't forget that. Tomorrow, Friday, and I'll be working hard to finish Friday Crazy News Update. It's actually presented on Friday. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't, and postpone from Friday to the weekend. I will do my best. No promises, but I'll be trying. Thank you so very much. Come back tomorrow. I have a daily snippet coming today for all patrons of Inside Russia. And as usual, to finish this live stream, please, as loud as you can, along with me, the following. Carthago delenda est.